This is my review of The Substance, a film I've now seen twice. I saw it once in a cinema in LA and I saw it once with my parents. Um, the first time I saw it, I was looking for a lot of sort of nuanced commentary, subtext, and so on about beauty standards in the contemporary West. Um, but I mean, I might not be reading the film correctly, but by the second time I watched it, I was watching it more as a efficient, messy body horror film, exploitation flick, and I saw the message of it as being more like one way or the other, the human form is going to get old. Um, I might be missing a lot of stuff, but I saw it more as a sort of a messy exploitation flick the second time around. So, what's the story of The Substance? Lots of spoilers ahead. Uh, Basically, Demi Moore plays Elizabeth Sparkle, an aging actress with her own star on the Walk of Fame, and her main source of income now appears to be an aerobics workout show on TV. So, after getting the boot from that, because she's getting older, she finds herself in a car accident and in the hospital, where one of her examiners slips her some contact details for this shady outfit that provides what I think is some sort of black market serum called The Substance. So Sparkle contacts these people to pick up her dose of the substance, along with this weird, complicated kit. Uh, she has to go to a locker in the recesses of a back alley to pick this up, and the kit has something called an activator in it. So you inject this once, and that causes a younger version of yourself to develop inside the pre existing genetic matrix of your body and then burst out your back like this giant, beautiful, escaping parasite. So now this younger you can journey out into the world and do stuff while your old self goes dormant, your old body goes dormant. After a week, the younger self hooks back up to old you with tubes from the kit, some fluids are exchanged, and old you is back in business for a week, and so on. So basically, it's like a timeshare where each gets 7 days. Only while the young version is awake, they have to keep taking some sort of spinal gunk from the sleeping older version of you and inject that to remain stabilized. So it's complicated, but that's some of the charm of the film. So, anyway, what happens if the younger version of you decides that he or she wants more than a week and keeps removing that gunk, that spinal gunk from the older body in the meantime? So, this is what we soon find out when the young version of Sparkle, who's this lither, younger woman called Sue, played by Margaret Qualley, begins to take more than her share of the calendar. So every time she does that, it takes a bit more out of older Elizabeth Sparkle's body, causing her to wake up a little bit more irreversibly rotted each time. So that's the basic premise and story of The Substance. Now, some people have been a bit confused as to whether Sparkle and young Sue share a consciousness, and this point is sort of glossed over or avoided a bit in the film. Now, personally, I would say that they do, because when Sue first emerges from out Sparkle's flesh, she knows English rather than having a pristine, empty infant's brain. So something must be transferred. What I think happens in the film is that Sparkle and Sue, who's basically also Sparkle, despite having some continuity of consciousness, suffer a psychotic break that renders each unable to empathize with her other half. So the jarring discontinuity of self-image engendered by inhabiting two bodies causes Sparkle's mind, which is in both, to fracture into separate modes of being, each almost involuntarily treating the other as an enemy. So she's one person, but she functions as two. She has a single store of memories, but an increasingly irrational assessment of consequences. Now, within the mechanics of the film, I don't know how she would have a single store of memories. Maybe when they switch back after a week, the fluids that are exchanged between the bodies, we see some shots of that, are transferring consciousness or memory somehow. I don't know, but you have to assume that something was transferred from Sparkle to Sue when Sue was first created, because when she emerged from out of Sparkle's back, she had knowledge of human language and of English and all of that, and was able to function. So anyway, all that aside, The film progresses and the physical state of Demi Moore's Sparkle becomes hideous, while Quali's Sue remains gorgeous and young. So there's an inevitable showdown between the two. So they're sort of leading conflicting lives at this point. And, like I said, spoilers, Sparkle is killed. So, unable to acquire the spinal fluid gunk she used to farm from the older body, Sue also begins to deteriorate and eventually injects herself with some of the leftover activator from near the beginning of the film against the explicit instructions of the substance kit. And this is in a desperate bid to create a fresh source of stabilizing fluid, I think. So the resultant new body is a terrifying freak called Monstro Elisa Sue, and that monster attends a public event in Sue's place and ends up being, if I remember correctly, shot by a terrified audience member, but not before drenching everyone in blood. So I enjoyed the substance immensely up until this gross out melodrama at the finale. I'm not alone in that. Rather than bang on too much about why I dislike that, I just sort of found it silly and dull. I'll say what I would have liked better. This is what I would have had as an alternative ending. I'm not saying this is better. This is what I would have liked better. This is what I would have done. So I think what should have happened is that Monstro goes to the back alley where the substance is deposited and refuses to leave until someone from the organization turns up to eject her. Eager to hide the mess they've caused, the substance people take Monstro to HQ, where she's brought before their curious scientists along with the boss. After a long, creepy monologue from the head guy, Monstro pulls a gun, shoots him, but he doesn't die. Security take her to a small room down some corridor where she is dumped along with a bunch of other pitiful mutants. This is where she lives now until the Substance Incorporated is tired of studying her. So that might not be the best ending, but I think it at least has potential for dramatic tension. Now, I realise that the Substance is a schlocky, splattery exploitation film. It doesn't prohibit some deeper emotional payoff. As it stands, what we got was a solid, exciting, dynamic sci-fi horror that ended in what I consider to be cheap theatrics. Now, I realise that the existing conclusion, with Monstro wearing a cut-out image of Sparkle to hide her frightening face, likely does contain commentary on what it feels like for women to age, how we pressure them to carefully hide their natural appearances, especially for public events. When Monstro cries out, "It's me," that may well speak to the crisis of self that occurs when one's physical form degrades, leading erstwhile friendly acquaintances to distance themselves and become cruel. But as the end of a dramatic narrative, it felt quite broad and numbing. So, as gallons of blood filled the screen, I found myself sort of disengaging a bit from the film. But that's sort of, a quibble about the ending. So that's not to say I think The Substance isn't worth watching. I definitely recommend it. But I think it would have been great rather than just very good if the climax had been a bit more substantial. So what's my score for The Substance? I was going to give it 5, but I think that's a bit harsh. I think a lot's gone into it. It's really nicely made. So I'm going to give it a 6. Maybe that's a bit lower than a lot of other people, but the ending was a little bit, unfortunately, disappointing for me. So anyway, so that's my review of The Substance. Let me know what you think in the comments. I have a written review of it, and I'll post a link to that as well. So thank you very much.